For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauer, and today I'm joined by Andrew Mauler, host of American Made right here on Ex America News, writer at what? You write for how many publications now? You're over at the New American, the Sentinel Report.
Just about 2 consistently, yeah. But I've done in other things. I've been published in the Epic Times, Freedom Talk Magazine, Frontline, one of Germany's biggest far-right publications, Jung Fahrenheit, few different places, but most consistently the New American and Liberty Sentinel.
Yeah, a man that wears many hats. We got a lot to discuss this morning, and we also got some breaking news too. We'll get into. Well, the U.S. is out of the World Cup, so I guess Americans can go back to not caring about soccer. Though I do think a lot of people discovered it too, and we're really into the games this year, and not just because of the U.S., because of the reaction from a lot of the people that were over here enjoying the abundance we are fortunate to have here in our country. And we also have breaking news that Nigel Farage is going to be resigning from UK Parliament. I assume this is over this scandal with someone whose house he'd stayed at in the past. And I haven't had a chance to really get in the details of this story yet. And I've kind of heard conflicting things that the whole controversy is made up, which that I believe. He had stayed at this person's house before they'd been arrested for money laundering or whatever the charges were in the U.S. And was not aware of it or anything like that. Other people are saying, well, he wasn't in Parliament when it happened, so he wasn't required to disclose this, or some $15,000 or some amount. I've heard $5,000. I've heard $15,000 loan that was repaid. So who knows what's true? But regardless, he's fighting a battle over there anyway. Though I think reform doesn't go far enough. You guys need to get behind Restore and actually take your country back. No more half measures. But any thoughts on that, Andrew, before we jump into main stories here today?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I hadn't heard that headline actually until you said it, and I oftentimes tune into GMB, which is Good Morning Britain. It's a talk show in the UK, and I will listen to that from time to time, often in the early mornings. Once or so a week. And maybe 2 weeks ago, I was listening to it, and they had Nigel Farage on. And, I've always respected him because, obviously he's kind of a canary in the coal mine a little bit over there. He's a little bit of a chicken in the fox house. But I appreciate it. He's always been supportive of President Trump. He was a big proponent behind Brexit, which I was a big supporter of, kind of pushing back against regional government, turning to global government, reclaiming some national sovereignty. So respected him for that. But they were pressuring him over supposedly some sort of a small fortune that he had been gifted. He had said he hadn't spent any of that money, that it was for personal use, that it was going to be used for his own security, that, MP's security is very abysmal and that he's a very high target. So he was planning on using some of this money he was given for security purposes. And I remember hearing that exchange and thinking, oh, that's kind of interesting. I need to look into it. And I never did. So I'm curious to see if that, kind of folds into this whole resignation. I do see from my quick perusal of the headlines, he says he's going to be making a statement later today or tomorrow about his future in politics. He doesn't strike me as the type of character who would just take this and leave government or leave parliament for good. I think he has a lot of ambitions. He's got a lot of friends. So we'll see what happens. Ultimately, I think that, if he did take money and have some sort of a financial blunder behind the scenes, obviously that needs to be addressed and clarified. However, what really bugs me, Michael, is in the political climate we're in, you'll have people who are committing far greater crimes, like allowing, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants into a country that are rape and pillaging, young women, for example, just throwing that one out there as a hypothetical. You have people who do that and their political career is, lifted up. But then you have somebody like Nigel Farage, who is really not even that radically right wing. He's just kind of like pushing the politics of 30 or 40 years ago. He is, trying to execute a vision of governance, and then, something financial happens, they rake him over the coals, right? So you kind of see this rules for thee, not for me mentality. And I think that's ultimately what is probably going on here, if I had to just guess.
Yeah, and that's certainly what it seems like to me too. And again, I don't think Nigel Farage goes far enough. I think you guys really need Restore Britain over there. But he is a fighter. He did, he did make Brexit happen, even though, again, the Labour government and a lot of the Conservatives sabotaged that. Same with the Bank of England. That's why you guys are still paying out money unnecessarily to the EU there. That's a whole other story. But, he wasn't seated in Parliament. He seems to have, I did see an interview with one of his surrogates regarding this yesterday. And, I guess there's an 18-month look back if you run for Parliament again, which he did following this, ran and won. And then it wasn't reported in that, but the argument is it was personal, not nothing related to his campaign, which seems to hold ground. And he pointed to other examples where other people had done this as well, and no investigation, no charges, no anything. So it does seem to be very one-sided. And yeah, when you've got a 250,000 rapes that the government covered up, essentially, and you got Starmer getting ready to release another 10,000 rapists and murderers, mostly foreign nationals, from their prison right before he goes out the door. This doesn't really seem like that big a deal to me. But again, it's these double standards that we have all over politics that always, the right's held to impossible standards, or any kind of minor infraction like this is blown up into something massive, whereas the left, we just ignore it, and that's a big problem. Let's jump into our main story here, because, guys, I think it's time we maybe actually start investigating the FBI, maybe fire some people there, and not just a few symbolic ones, because we have two major stories coming out today with, FBI caught in some lies. Police officer reveals 350 FBI agents were ready to deploy on January 6th in a newly released police body cam footage. So for those of you that don't know, Judicial Watch finally, after years and years of fighting, and a lot of even conservatives are trying to get them to back down for some reason, now after we took control of the FBI, I guess fear of it making the FBI look bad, successfully got over 1,000 hours of body cam footage released yesterday. Part of this is a conversation between two police officers where they're discussing the 350 plus FBI agents embedded in the crowd. So this confirms what we already knew, and it expands the number greatly. What did they admit to before? I think it was like 87 or 85 agents in the crowd, and then plus some from other divisions. Oh yeah, and we had some paid informants, and we had this in the crowd and that in the crowd. This is much, much bigger in scope, and the story is really just breaking now, and there's a lot of sleuths out there still going through the other 1,000+ hours of footage that was released. So what else are we going to find in these body cam videos that back up, well, the truth that this was a setup? This was intended to cause chaos. They wanted to generate a narrative from it, and if anything, they didn't get the level of violence that they wanted in January 6th. And again, we have to go back and find out. So anybody that was on video actually committing acts of violence, were they a federal perpetrator or not? Because I tend to think a lot of them were agent provocateurs. And again, that's not to totally dismiss it. There were some actual lunatics in the crowd out there that did perpetrate some violence, but that is a fraction of a percentage of the people that were there on our side. And again, there's going to be some bad actors no matter what. There were some people up there to cause trouble, but I think this was mostly driven by the federal police and intelligence apparatus.
100%. And, when I see these headlines, I'm reminded of, Nancy Pelosi, right? And that whole debacle about her role in, the police and securing the Capitol. And this is exactly what, not to be a glazer, but it's true, what President Trump said. Was the issue that he had reached out to the Capitol and had requested law enforcement, had requested the National Guard to secure the area. And those requests were ignored. Those requests were not fulfilled to the level they should have been. And this is what we typically see with the deep state. They really thrive and require these sorts of events, these sorts of turnings to create resets. You remember Kamala Harris when she gave a speech on the anniversary of January 6th. I believe it was maybe 2 or 3 years after January 6th. She gave a speech within the Capitol, and she listed off some dates. Significant dates in American history. There was Pearl Harbor, there was D-Day, there was 9/11, and then she mentioned January 6th, 2020.
Yes.
So, they tried to incorporate this in kind of the American zeitgeist of this moment of, white supremacy, racism, nationalism, bubbling its ugly head, trying to, ensue upon a coup on the nation's capital, but that thankfully it was, overcome and stopped. But of course, that's not what happened. You had, peaceful, patriotic people who were there. You had agent provocateurs. You had, very open police security presence within the Capitol, inviting people in. I mean, This is a really easy case to crack. And I think the fact that you had more law enforcement there that could have been deployed and they weren't is evidence that, or at least is a contributing factoid to the argument that this is something that was orchestrated to create a narrative that would be useful for the left moving forward, that they could point to this date, they could point to this event and say, this is the consequence of America First nationalism, right? This is the consequence of MAGA. And that is what they wanted. And in a sense, they got it. But as the details continue to roll out on this, it becomes more and more obvious that this was kind of a great reset micro event for the left to be able to use it as kind of a benchmark for low IQ voters to point at and say, like, hey, this is what you're going to get if you vote, Republican.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this is against the backdrop of the Summer of Love, which they still ignore and excuse. Oh, that was just a natural uprising from the people, even though that did billions of dollars worth of damage in various cities, over $8 billion, because we don't even know the totals. Some cities won't release what the amount insurance companies weren't covering within their cities. And I honestly, I think it's probably in the order of 12 to 15 billion when it's all said and done, not to mention the economic losses, and 40 plus deaths. 40 directly related to BLM. Well, I guess a few of those are sort of ancillary too, but around 40 deaths directly related to the riots and protests, and then some other deaths that occurred accidentally or through criminal actions of people that were there, like that poor 6-year-old that was shot in the Wendy's drive-in in Atlanta by BLM activists, protesters. Or people that were accidentally killed, that were in buildings burned to death that they set on fire. But anyway, we already know the media is going to run cover for the Democrats. They're going to inflate and try to treat any violence at all that happens on the right. It is treated like it's the end of the world. Oh, this never happens. You're just destroying our republic. Well, the left's violence excuse. I mean, even look at what just happened with these Antifa retards down in Texas that just got sentences between 30 and 100 years. The media is still out there saying, oh, these were just protesters, blah, 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 blah. Even though they showed up, they shot a police officer in the neck, showed up with explosives, had a complex plan of a distraction group with fireworks and whatever, and then another one that was going to orchestrate the attack. But you won't get that from the media. They leave those details out and pretend these are just protesters. Things got a little out of hand. Maybe the guy that shot the police officer, maybe he should go to the jail. But the rest of them, this is over sentencing. No, I mean we've got to start actually throwing these people in jail for the crimes they commit, and the kid gloves have to stop, and the truth has to come out. But this isn't the FBI's only problem that was just revealed. Ty Clevenger and others have been pressing them on Seth Rich for years. Secret FBI room in hidden docks in Bernbeg could bust open Seth Rich case. Let me grab the next headline on this too real quick. Attorney Ty Clevenger drops bombshell. FBI hid hundreds of Seth Rich documents in previously hidden skiff room at headquarters, mixed with burn bags intended for destruction. So he doesn't have access to these documents yet, but someone he's been working with at the FBI. This has been ongoing with FOIA requests. He's not the only one. Again, shout out to Tom Fitton and Judicial Watch. They've stayed on top of this as well. And again, unfortunately, there's people on our side that have been trying to shut them up because it could make people look bad within the administration. Seth Rich is probably the source for WikiLeaks. That it's been, I want to say, more or less confirmed by Julian Assange, and this is why we have all those DNC emails. We need to get to the bottom of this. It seems to be one of these cases. It's obviously a homicide. It was not just it was a homicide, but it was not just a robbery gone wrong. We deserve the truth, especially if he is the one that actually leaked these documents. Again, the media has been lying about it for years, along with the FBI and our intelligence services. So we deserve the truth. But again, a big shout out to everybody who's been actually continuing to fight for this, and get the truth out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the FBI and the CIA, these are really great examples of why these, branches of government, that's basically what they've become, not departments, but branches of government, really need to be reformed or destroyed altogether and have something built up in their place. These are organizations that are, completely removed from the public eye. They do not have any sort of accountability with the people. So it shouldn't be surprising that they would have, a secret room with burn bags full of documents and everything, because A, they want to be able to self-sustain and self-preserve, and B, a big part of just even the existence of these organizations is to be able to, cover up for, issues and crimes within the government that the more forward-facing branches and agencies commit, to be able to commit espionage and to be able to spy and weaponize the systems of government against the people of the United States. So these are some of the things that the FBI and the CIA have done, apart from like killing presidents and stuff too. And they obviously would have some stuff that's hidden from, Congress, that would be hidden from presidents, that would be hidden from the DOJ. And that's really concerning. And if the CIA and FBI, I think it would be a safe assumption to say that whatever we know about, like the cutting edge of whatever we know about, the latest news about whatever we know about with regards to their secrets, it's probably 50x that, right? In reality.
Oh, yeah.
So if that is the case, then God only knows what else they have or what else they've done. So I'm a big proponent of this notion that we need to get the CIA and the FBI back to being like basically presidential advisory commissions and boards, where the CIA is basically a wing of the White House that briefs the president on issues. And the FBI too. I think that, there's a good case to be made for empowering, local jurisdictions more than the FBI, and really neutering the FBI in a sense. So it's concerning. I hope the DOJ is able to really ultimately expose this, but it's kind of like whack-a-mole. Once you hit this one down, something else is going to pop up. And I think unless you have some sort of systemic change in the culture in the CIA or the FBI by radically reforming it, these sorts of things are just going to continue to go on. And, as RFK Jr., I think articulated very well during his presidential campaign, that the deep state in some truest senses really are the largest and the most powerful within the intelligence agencies.
Yes. I think we all know this. Leading into this, you had Don Gino and Kash Patel out there saying essentially the same thing, that there were probably around 6,000 FBI agents that need to be cleaned out and fired there, that were part of the deep state, that were corrupt, that ran this coup against President Trump, that did the targeting for January 6th, and had their hands in a lot of other very dirty pies. They need to go. We've fired less than 200 FBI agents at my last count. Maybe it's slightly over that now. And a lot of these were just symbolic. Now, some of them were the agitators in there behind the scenes and supervisors, but there's a lot more that need to go. Now, maybe it isn't a full 6,000, because I've heard that postulated as well, that, some of them that were involved early on with January 6th were similar to like Garrett O'Boyle, where they weren't people that were particularly political. They thought they were going out and rounding up people that were actually responsible for violence on January 6th, and it took a couple cases for them to realize that that was not what was going on. And I do have some sympathy for people like that up to this point thought they were doing their job. But there's a lot that it was very clear that they were on the wrong side of the law, the wrong side of the Constitution, but they just kept going, and they were politically driven. Every one of these people needs to go. That isn't even to touch the CIA and DIA, which right now are still being protected. Again, probably the majority of the people involved there need to go, that they're orchestrating coups around the world, including here, and getting involved in things that they have no business being involved in, whether that's selling poppies for heroin in Afghanistan or the variety of other crimes they've committed against the American people. It's time for some actual accountability at the federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies. Everybody knows it. It's one of the main things Trump ran on, but we're just not getting results there. When things like this happen, when this kind of information comes out, it just illustrates why it is a problem we have to resolve now, or it is only going to continue. And if the left gets power again, they are going to once again weaponize it against the American people, because that's what they do.
Yeah. And not to forget, I think it was John Brennan who on CNN recently said that there's still a legion of operatives within the DOJ, CIA, and FBI that exist to push back against Trump's orders that, contradict their agenda. He used that word legion, I think, very aptly. Of course, we also hear in the scriptures, legion in regards to demons. Not making a connection there, but I just thought it was a funny word choice. He could have said anything. He could have said group, clique, cabal, anything. He picked that word.
Very fitting.
Yeah, and then of course Chuck Schumer, very notoriously said on Meet the Press many years ago that if you go after the intelligence agencies, speaking to President Donald Trump, they have 6 ways from Sunday getting back at you. Of course, you have Alan Dulles, who was the former, director of the CIA. He ended up, going against John F. Kennedy with regards to the Bay of Pigs invasion, how the CIA handles foreign conflicts. Kennedy obviously had a disagreement with him over that. And Kennedy ended up firing Dulles from the CIA over the Bay of Pigs. And then Dulles ends up being on the Warren Commission, where he decides the fate for history of John F. Kennedy's own assassination. So anytime you go back and look at the CIA, their history, what they've been involved in, it's nothing but espionage, treason, corruption, etc. And again, it's not necessarily the FBI or CIA agents. I know there are patriots in there, good people. The same argument you make with schools, right? It's not all the teachers who are bad. A lot of people in there just want to make a good difference, and they're good people. But the foundations of it, the upper echelons of it, is very corrupt.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think with the CIA, it's going to trickle down much further than just the upper echelon. And we just had this guy arrested with, $40 million in gold in his house, a bunch of watches and other things. I think both organizations are going to have to interview every agent individually, investigate them to their ties, see if they let their politics interfere with their work, get rid of them. And in the case of the CIA, same thing. And a lot of these people are going to need criminal charges. We can't just let the people go with slaps on the wrist anymore. This is what the people voted for. This is what we demand. And this is part of why we're having this problem right now in these upcoming midterms. I know there's a lot of cheerleaders out there. If the voting base is not happy with the results they've gotten, they're sick and tired of hearing, you just got to wait till this next election cycle. They're just not having it anymore. And hopefully we do get some actual results, some prosecutions, but it's problems like this that persist that are why they're unhappy. And this should be an easy problem to fix. Again, just do the right thing, do what you ran on, and we wouldn't be in this situation. Not to mention that would clear a path for making everything better in the future. You want to take down the deep state apparatus, you actually have to do it. You can't just talk about it. It doesn't end here either. Anna Paulina Luna calls for investigation into Patriot Front after flash rally in D.C. These people disappeared when the USAID funding dried up. But as we've seen in the past, man, I should have grabbed this. That when these people were unmasked, I can't remember if this was in Seattle or Portland or where it was, where they showed up out there to agitate. A bunch of I think it was at a church picnic or church event. A bunch of the people got sick of it, pulled off their masks. Well, 3 of the 4 they unmasked were CIA operatives, worked for the CIA, or had other connections to the CIA. It's pretty obvious that this is a false flag operation designed to, again, besmirch the right's reputation and give them a fake element they can control and essentially generate false flags or false media attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And you notice a lot of these guys look military aged. They look just central casting. You even go back and look at that picture. They look like they're central casting intelligence agents. They're often wearing the same,
uniforms.
I don't even know what you'd call those little, bandit type things. They've got those. They've got the nice sunglasses, the hat. I mean, that is just too easy, too easy to spot. And then have you ever seen? I never even looked into this to see how true it was, but on Fox News, they would have these guys come in with masks, and they said they were a part of these protests or whatever. And you look at the eyes of some of these guys, and they look very similar. It just makes you wonder, how much of this is organic. Of course, we know if we go back and look at history, you can look at the Bolshevik Revolution, you can look at the color revolutions in Ukraine, you can even look at the French Revolution, and you see that these are not organic uprisings. These are, very tailored, very spurred on, well-financed, deep state operations. Even the civil rights movement in the United States, unfortunately fell under that banner. So anytime you see something this organized, this well-funded, this cohesive, even down to the outfits, I do think you have to start having, sirens going off in your head, because most likely it's an op.
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to pull this story here real quick, that I thought one of the allegations with the SPLC was they had actually done direct funding to Patriot Front, but I don't know if that was ever confirmed, but that they were the ones behind the scenes funding the organization. It says here they were accused of it. Was funding... Now, I'm trying to see if there's any actual confirmation of that, or was just being investigated, because again, it's an obvious false flag operation, and we do know that they were caught in the act funding people that were there on January 6th, and assumed it's agitators. They were also funding people on behalf of the CIA and the FBI for various infiltrations, as they would call them. But yeah, again, I think this group needs an actual investigation, especially, again, if this is a tool the left is using to sow division here and, again, create the media narrative that they want to push forward. Because I have no doubt that's what this is about, especially as we're getting closer to an election. Now, all of a sudden, like magic, they're just showing up again. Well, let's shift over to a story that you'd sent over to me this morning. Exclusive: leading UN Secretary General candidate Macky Sall backs peace builder Donald Trump's push for reforms, make the UN great again. I don't think that's possible. We cannot make the UN great again. We need to destroy it and defund it and get rid of these globalists and their false legitimacy they have by getting, again, the UN to echo their narratives, not just here, but around the world.
Yeah, exactly. So when I saw this story, I couldn't help but smirk, because it's so clever of the deep state. They recognize that flattery is the path to Donald Trump's heart. That imitation's the greatest form of flattery. And if you have this character, Macky Sall, who is the former president of Senegal, who's a leading candidate to be the new UN Secretary General. And for those who don't know, the UN Secretary General currently is Antonio Guterres, former president of the Socialist International, literal communist socialist global organization. And they're looking to potentially replace him with this character. And he is glazing Trump. He's really love bombing him, honestly. He says, he wants to congratulate him on all of his peace, that he's a peace builder, that he wants to mimic what he's done, that they can make this reform, that they have the capacity to, make the UN into something greater and make it MUNGA, make UN great again. That's what he's saying. Even copied the acronym. He's really going along the Trump lines here. He's trying to mimic the Trump effect in the United Nations. And the problem with that is is to say, make America great again. That's possible because America was once great, right? You can go back and look at the foundations of the United States, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Mayflower Compact, and you can see greatness. You can see exceptionalism. You can see something worth returning to and striving for. But you go back to the UN, and you find Kurt Waldheim, one of the first secretary generals who was a Nazi. You find Alger Hiss, the communist spy who Nixon exposed as a key architect of the UN. You see global government. You see a rejection of God. You see, UN peacekeepers who, by the UN's own number, have raped over 30,000 women and children, way more than that in actuality. You see corruption. You see espionage. You see treason. You see just a complete and total inversion of God's design. I mean, these are truly the modern day Tower of Babel builders. And being a part of the UN for the United States, for Americans, is unconstitutional. And there's no reforming it. There's no reforming the cancer. There's only eradicating the cancer. And I think this push to this new Macky Sall character to be the new UN Secretary General, it really does reveal the formula of the globalists moving forward. They recognize that they've lost the battle on being very flagrant and open about their agenda items, right? They thought, around 2016 to 2024, they might be able to be very flagrant with the LGBTQ stuff, the globalism stuff, the Satanism, the multi-religion, pantheism nonsense, just in your face, climate change, all that stuff. They thought that they were going to be able to get away with that people were that dumb. I don't think they expected the enormity of the pushback they received, mainly thanks to organizations like the John Birch Society, alternative media, podcasts like Joe Rogan, things like that. Just unexpected elements came together in kind of a free market alternative media space that pushed back so hard on them that now you had moms in Iowa talking about Bill Gates and mosquitoes. You had, dads in Ohio talking about, the Great Reset and Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, things they banked on people not knowing about, they started to talk about. So now they're resetting and they're saying, okay, we are organizations that have been around for a lifetime. We have a little bit of history on our side. What if we pitch the new move as, kind of reform and returning back to our greatness? And what if we channel Trump's energy and say we're going to make the UN great again? They are banking on people on the right seeing that as a win, right?
Exactly.
They're going to, the Fox News hosts say, wow, Trump is so effective that now he's got the UN, an organization that was committed to his demise, now channeling his energy, right? They want you to think that's a win. But here's the rub. The United Nations and the globalist outfit, they win just by continuing to exist because they are inter-administration, inter-government, inter-candidate organizations. Politicians come and go. They want to stay forever. And if they can just ride out this storm and continue keeping their policies, continue keeping their influence, continue doing their summits and their conferences, continue taking tax dollars, they will just ride this out like a cockroach during a nuclear explosion. And when the dust settles and everyone else is gone, they will come out from under the rubble and continue to rebuild. The only solution to this is complete and utter destruction politically and, monetarily of these institutions. And that is what they're hoping you won't do. So I just wanted to sound the alarm on that because it's just so obvious that is what they're doing here.
Yes, you're exactly. You really hit the nail on the head. And they do need to be eradicated. They can't be reformed. There's an evil institution and has been since its inception. And unfortunately, I think you're also right that there's a lot of these mindless cheerleaders that are going to go, oh, see, look, Trump made them change. Now they're on our side. We've taken over the UN. Ha ha, winning. But they're just retards that don't understand the bigger picture that they're now on the side of the globalists. And all it took was a couple smooth talkers changing things. I mean, it's antithetical to making America great again. You can't have a nationalist movement within an international organization. It's impossible. They are the enemy of individual nations. They want a globalist government. They push for globalist things. Maybe they're right now reforming and giving a few inches here and there, softening their approach because it's finally got so unpalatable that they're losing popularity worldwide among people. But they're going to be right back to where they've always been before. But unfortunately, I think there's a lot of stupid people that will just like, haha, look, we got them. Now they're changing. Now they want to be like President Trump. Not understand, again, it's just a wolf in sheep's clothing once again to obfuscate from their real agenda and pretend to be capitulating when, like you said, the minute Trump's out of office, the minute something changes, or even if they just wait a little long enough, that they're going to be right back to the same thing again, and it will never have stopped. It may have slowed down, gone into the shadows, but their agenda never stopped, it never reformed, it never changed, and that's the reality that we have to admit. We need to defund them entirely, let them just collapse under their own weight, and let's not forget, this is the World Health Organization, this is the World Economic Forum. These are enemies of freedom, Western civilization, and capitalism. And they always have been, they always will. There is no fixing that. There is no reforming that. So don't be stupid enough to fall for it because they put somebody up that has says some nice things and glazes Trump for a little while. Because again, I doubt they mean it unless it's in the, this guy saying, well, he admires him for his ability to get things done. And maybe that part's true. But regardless, this is not an organization that can be reformed or saved. Just like this candidate here, Graham Plattner. Taking time to reflect, Graham Plattner responds to recent sexual misconduct allegations against him. I still can't believe that it took... they were willing to deal with him being a Nazi and all the crazy stuff he said on Reddit. The other disgusting disclosures that came out forward and were revealed, or right after being married, he was trying to find women to cheat to help him cheat on his wife. All the others, but these allegations, because they're from a leftist, it's finally aligned too far. I have a feeling that's not what the real problem is. I think it's the polling slipping for him there, saying that he can't beat Susan Collins and the rules in Maine, or they can airdrop in an alternative candidate, and I guess they've got somebody that's polling just over Susan Collins they want to put in his place now.
Yeah, and also wasn't he on some child pornography app or something too? I read something about
like
that too.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is a guy, by the way, who is backed by Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, all the institutional Democrats. Where are the retractments statements? Where are the endorsements that are being pulled? Everyone's been silent. At least that I've seen. Maybe somebody pulled their endorsement and I just haven't seen it.
There's a few that have, but the major ones no, like Bernie Sanders and that I haven't seen anything from them. There's a few people that have or said, oh, well, now this deserves investigation all of a sudden, whereas, the Totenkopf on his chest we were just supposed to overlook.
Right. But writ large, there's no, outlash or outcry or retracting of endorsements or anything like that. Over the scandal. And that just shows something that I've said and many other people have been saying for years is that the left is so much better at unity than the right. The right will totally bicker and destroy each other and eat one another alive. When the left, they'll be like, hey, you know what? You're a Nazi, you're a pedophile, you're this, you're that. But we both want like one world government and we both want like, welfare state and this, that, and the other. So we're just going to be friends and, put this behind us. Yeah, but the right, it's the exact opposite, right? It's like you have a different view on foreign policy than I do. You have a different view on Israel than I do. You have a different view on Trump than I do. So therefore, you are woke Reich, right? And you are therefore all these different, pejoratives, and you're the enemy, and I'm going to spend all my time exposing you. And I mean, just think of all this stuff that's going on, Michael, on Twitter right now over Charlie Kirk, where you have Candace Owens bickering with, people from Turning Point USA, and they're sharing text screenshots and this, that, and the other. It's like, I get it. There's definitely one right side to this issue and people can make up their own minds. And there's a lot of problems with how the Charlie Kirk assassination has been handled by Turning Point USA and by the detractors and commentators surrounding it. However, imagine if you guys took the time and energy and passion that you're putting towards exposing and destroying one another and put it towards destroying and defeating the globalist satanic deep state that ultimately would have all of us in the gulag, right? So maybe let's put our time and effort and attention towards that rather than going after one another. And I think that's the lesson that the Plattner or whatever his name is situation can tell us as Republicans is that the left can have a guy like this who is a character who has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. And by the way, I've been to Maine. I know what the people are like in Maine. I can't even believe that a character like this would make it this far, but it just shows what I'm saying is true, that they're that dedicated to the ideology that they would embrace a guy like this who has a Nazi tattoo, who obviously has some sexual perversions, and they would push that guy because he agrees with them ideologically. The right would never do that. They would just all come out and make statements. They would turn on each other and they'd lose the election.
Yeah.
So we have to unify and stop a lot of this pettiness because that's what the left does.
Yeah, and I mean, Plattner, it's going to be interesting to see how the media handles this. I'm not so sure he's stepping down. He said he canceled some events and is off the campaign trail, but he's also been insisting that these are false allegations. Whether they are or not, I don't know. Don't really care. But even the accuser said she waited to come forward because she liked his politics. Apparently, it's like an ex-girlfriend of his too, and it's all over some drunken incident. I don't really care about the details. But the media has been running defense for him, even denying that it's a Nazi tattoo, or basically trying to cloud that as well. They believe him. Oh, he didn't know what it was. Yeah, right. No, nobody buys that. Nobody with two brain cells to rub together. Everybody knows he knew exactly what he was doing and just regrets it now. Whereas, if this were some conservative running and they had, done a Roman salute when they were 12 years old, it would still be an issue today. And, that'd be the only thing you heard. They'd be, have you denounced Nazis yet? Have you stopped beating your wife? Right. That would be the only thing on the campaign trail. But again, the left circles the wagons, whereas we send in circular firing squads and destroy our candidates. And it's time to stop playing this game and doing the media and the Democrats work for them. We have to actually start fighting to win. Well, let's go from the supposed dead man walking to somebody that's probably brain dead. Mitch McConnell. Here's a flashback for you guys from just a couple days ago. McConnell's wife visited China to meet with high-ranking communist officials just 3 days after Mitch McConnell was hospitalized. Since then, more's come out where we know just how bad it is that he can't rub two brain cells together. He's been down for the count for a while. We just haven't wanted to, or they haven't wanted to admit it. I mean, this is one of the last pictures of him with all the purple, whatever that is, on his hand. The bruising on his face. This guy's fallen apart. He shouldn't be in office. He should have been put out to pasture a long time ago. But like all the deep state operatives, he just doesn't want to step down. He wants to maintain that power and control. And I think that, so last night, The Hill broke a story that they said originally was talking to aides and other people around him, and they're investigating at the hospital and whatnot, that he is brain dead, that he has no more cerebral activity whatsoever, that he's basically just being kept technically alive by life support. We know he had some sort of horrible medical incident. The call from that came out recently. But his office says he's fine. They're working with him, even though the Senate's out of session. They're coordinating legislation with him right now, and he's working from the hospital. Yeah, I don't think so. Nobody believes that, but I do believe they're going to try to hold out till I can't remember if it's August 3rd or when it is in Kentucky. It's first week of August that they have for him to drop out so they can do a special election and replace him. And wouldn't it be great if Thomas Massie entered that race and then managed to win? The ultimate revenge there for all the becoming the fake news, lying about him so they could remove him from office, and putting up millions of dollars from foreign countries to interfere in our elections.
Yeah, that would be one of the most delicious outcomes imaginable.
Yes.
But unfortunately, probably unlikely. McConnell, he has to go. I mean, his whole wife in that situation, very obviously some sort of a honeypot, intelligence angle to it, very reminiscent of the whole Fang Fang debacle. Unfortunate. McConnell's the type who is, never going to let go until it's absolutely necessary, because this is a character who really does, in my opinion, I've never met him, never talked to him, but just, anecdotally from what I've seen and observed online, he seems to be the type who is, your traditional power hungry politician. You just can't let go. just can't let go, right? And we haven't heard from him in forever. And this is very reminiscent of Biden, right? And what happened
Yeah.
with Biden, where you have some sort of elite clique of staffers and legislative aides who are most likely pulling the strings. If you can't even walk down the hallway, and I'm saying this out of respect because as a human being to human being, I want him to do well and be okay.
Yeah.
But if he can't even walk down the Capitol hallway without somebody holding him up, right? Is he really able to execute the office of a senator, of which there's only 100 out of a country of 300 plus million people? So it's very concerning. I really do hope that Mitch McConnell steps down, that somebody more competent, replaces him.
Yeah.
But the McConnells of the world, the Bidens of the world in our political ecosystem, I think they are great case studies for a deep state. That, as Vivek Ramaswamy said, the people who we elect to run our government aren't always running the government. It's a lot of times these, administrators, these
Yep.
staffers, these aides, who brief these individuals on what the bills say, who tell them what the skiff is all about, who tell them how they should campaign or run their elections, who they should meet with, who they shouldn't meet with, what bills they should co-sponsor, what they shouldn't. And that's why we just need more rebellious, free-thinking, free-spirited people who come in and don't rely on this system to guide them. But yeah, Mitch McConnell, really sad. I hope he gets better. I hope he is able to have a good rest of his life, but that should not be within the confines of being a senator.
Yeah, I think we need to demand proof of life, and from what I hear too, no one has power of attorney, so even him stepping down is going to be a problem. But yeah, if this guy's so Dane Bramaged, he's not going to make a recovery. Well, we got to push him out. We got to put somebody in there. And again, I think in Kentucky we could get an actual conservative, and that's what the real problem is they're afraid of somebody that will vote for the Save America Act. And I think Massey would have a chance of taking that seat. Maybe not that well, but Cocaine Mitch has been a problem there for a long time. But he's always brought home the bacon. That's essentially why he's kept his seat there. Is bribery is what I consider it. A lot of these pork and bills that goes back to his district. But and we need somebody up there that is a constitutionalist, that is a real fighter, and will call them out on their nonsense. And again, maybe this is another vote that we have that we could replace Thune, who's shown he's a worthless rhino. It's an undocumented Democrat. I want to mention one last thing. I don't think Elaine Chao, his wife, has come back from China yet. I'm pretty sure she's still over there. I saw a few other people that were kind of also looking for this data, but I think she's still there. I think she's returned home to her CCP roots, and I don't know if she's coming back. Maybe she knows Mitch is already checked out and is no longer useful to the CCP. So I guess she's back there either for a retirement or waiting for her next assignment.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, and we really do need to be careful about. I was thinking more as you were talking about, his wife and this Chinese asset, and everything behind that. I do think there is a lot of that going on in our government, and it's not always in the form of a wife. That's kind of the more rare side of it. A lot of times, maybe it's some sort of a fling or affair or something like that. Where
something they could blackmail them over later, if they came out and revealed it.
That's right. It's the Jeffrey Epstein worldview. It's the Jeffrey Epstein mantra. That has not gone away, and it's still alive and well in our government. So that is why having individuals of good Christian character, as our founding fathers said, who recognize there is a court to come in the kingdom of heaven where we will be judged for our, righteous acts and unrighteous acts. That is so important, where we have elected representatives who we can't always keep an eye on. We can't always see what they're doing, the deals they're making, the lobbyists they're speaking with, the special interest groups, the, blah, 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 blahs. But if we know they're of good moral character, then they have this notion of conviction. They have this notion of conscience. And therefore they are, accountable to God and to the people, but not just to the people alone. So that notion of individual Christian self-government, of character, duty, responsibility, our founding fathers spoke of that frequently. That is so critical, because if you have men who are operating in a Christian system of government that is dependent upon that character, conscience, and duty framework, but they're lawless, reckless, self-serving, corruption will ensue, and it will be inevitable because it's a Christian system. It's meant for Christians to operate within it. And when you put atheists or godless people or pagans into it, it's fitting a square peg into a round hole.
Well said. Well, I got one more story here. It's going to make your blood boil. But we are getting close to running out of time, so let's see what else we can sneak in here. Report, your kid's school bus is the new Big Brother on wheels with always live plate readers for police surveillance. I'm really not surprised that this has happened. But yeah, similar to Flock, there's another company, and I'll pull up the details on this here in a second. Let me see if I can get this to open. Sorry, I'm having issues all of a sudden getting the story to open over on Not the Bee. Probably a plan.
While you're doing that, I can share a little bit about this. So with the whole Flock issue, obviously these are not license plate readers. These are surveillance cameras. It doesn't surprise me one bit that these are on school buses. The government school system is another institution that has not gone astray. It hasn't had mission creep. It was built to accomplish a purpose, and that was to make nice little socialists and collectivists. Look up John Dewey, Horace Mann, a lot of these characters who are the architects of the public education system. It is accomplishing exactly what they wanted. But yes, this whole spy network thing, they are really trying to inch this out in the name of safety. Flock, Pegasus, Palantir, all these different companies that are out there. They're saying it's about safety, it's about security, it's about this, that, and the other. And, the example that I've come up with is, if all of us had to wear body cameras 24/7, you probably would stop some crimes from happening, right? But you also lose every single ounce of autonomy, sovereignty, privacy that you possessed. So what's worth it? Stopping more crimes, but losing all liberty, or having liberty and handling crimes, recognizing we live in a fallen world and these sorts of things are going to happen. So we really do have to push back on this. I see a lot of the vigilantes going around cutting down the Flock cameras, and I love the rebellious spirit. However, I am concerned that is going to escalate to the point where you're going to have some sort of an instance where, Flock camera is going to get cut down. There's going to be some sort of a rape and kidnapping. They're going to say, hey, this Flock camera could have saved this girl's life. Therefore, people who cut down Flock cameras are domestic terrorists. And then they're going to weaponize. And they're already doing that, I'm sure. But we need to go to our city councils. And I know this isn't the sexy answer. Like, people are going to be like, oh, great, this whole local government pitch again. But it is true, because it has worked. DFlock, that website that tracks all the cameras, they also track all the cities that have retracted their contracts. It's like close to well over 100 cities. That's not nothing. That have had active Flock camera contracts and have retracted them. Almost 100 cities. That's not nothing. But we need to go to our city councils, our county councils, and tell them why this is a bad idea. It's not that we can't have license plate readers. It's not that we can't have traffic stop cameras. We can and have for decades. It's that we don't want Flock safety because they're not license plate readers. These are gunshot detection cameras. These are cameras that have Flock freeform AI built into them. They have a drone program, Flock Alpha. Like we've talked about this, and the school bus issue and all that stuff. It's the exact same scenario.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this company, Bus Patrol, they're already in 24 states, and they already have 40,000 cameras out there patrolling the public. And I think it's only a matter of time before they do get linked up with Flock or other places and added to this database, where, again, they are building profiles on Americans. And, again, this is another way to bypass search warrants, that anybody here or abroad can buy the data that they collected. And, sometimes they're going to use it for marketing, but a lot of it's going to be used for much more nefarious purposes. They're tracking. One of the things I saw they're tracking is who goes in and out of churches. So again, you want to build a list of political dissidents that don't like your views. Here's a good starting point for that, and you've already got a surveillance set and data. Because it isn't just Flock; it's other camera companies. Or other surveillance companies, to call them. They're all part of this, Palantir idea of zero crime. We got to put our foot down on this now. I think you're right. I think city councils are a good place to start. I think just even revealing this information in a public setting like that is effective and will help apply some pressure to those people on the council. But again, this is why you've got to get involved. You've got to run for office. We have to take back these institutions, top down and bottom up, if there's any hope in saving this country. And again, they're already talking about the people that are doing this or pushing back against it being domestic terrorists, just like people that are pushing back against the AI data centers. I think it's only a matter of time before, again, we see somebody at our corrupt FBI echo that concern like we already have with the people pushing back against data centers. So, these companies are not our friend, even if they're pretending to be, much like the UN. Something's got to be done, and it's going to be up to us to do it because, again, our politicians are all too spineless. A lot of them are probably taking contributions from companies like this. So you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to make some noise, make it so painful for them to move forward that, guess what, they finally stop.
That's right. And I do want to say one more thing because I think this is interesting. It's been on my mind. And it's somewhat related, but it's going to seem unrelated. But I am, interested in this. So I went and saw a little movie the other day called Toy Story 5. And I went and saw it. And, I grew up in that era when those were coming out and wanted to go see it. My sister was in town for the 4th. So my wife, my sister, and I went and saw it. Honestly, a great movie. A great movie. Got to be honest. And this is coming from a guy who's been completely disenfranchised from Disney because of the wokeness, because of the homosexuality, because of the anti-God pagan propaganda that's been pushed since, around 2006, 2007. So I go and see the movie. And of course, for those who don't know, Toy Story is about, kids playing with toys, and the toys are actually alive and they, help the kids. And it's about imagination and childhood and wonder and all these sorts of things. Well, Toy Story 5 introduces a new character, which is LilyPad. And LilyPad is a smart device. And I was very interested to see how Toy Story would handle technology being integrated into childhood. And lo and behold, Michael, I can't believe this. The whole message of the movie, and I saw the whole thing and I watched very carefully. The message of the movie was technology's bad. It spies on you. It listens to you. It manipulates you. And kids should have no business being on technology at that age. They need to be outside, touch grass, play with animals, roll around in the mud, and have an actual childhood. That was the message, genuinely. And I was surprised. And there's a moment in the film where Buzz and Woody are talking to LilyPad, and they say, "Hey, you listen to me." And the iPad says, "Don't worry, I'm always listening." And then it pulls up a screen and plays back what they had just been saying. And it's a creepy scene. And I do think we're seeing a turn here a little bit culturally with some things where people are getting, even on the left, dissatisfied with the surveillance state idea. And they want to return to a 1990s, 1980s United States of America. And of course, I do think Disney's mostly in this for profits. And I did a little digging, and they're actually selling, because the LilyPad character in the film is like a frog iPad, has like little eyes and stuff. They're actually selling for $49.99 on Best Buy and Walmart LilyPad themed iPad cases for your kids. So there's some hypocriticalness in there. Okay. I posted a screenshot of that on my X. You could go check it out. Andrew One Muller. I thought it was humorous. But I think we're seeing a turn here culturally. But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff like Disney and stuff, I think it's more profit oriented, than anything else. They're tanking. They're like, hey, what's something we can do to bring people back in the fold? Hey, let's just go after tech a little bit. But all that to say, I know that was a long kind of side quest. But I do think people on the left are starting to wake up to, hey, we don't want to be surveilled. We don't want to be spied on. And there's been a big contingent within the anti-FLOC community that are hard left-wingers, because FLOC has in some instances been utilized by ICE to find illegal immigrants. So
yes.
There is kind of a coalition.
Yeah. Well, that's something I think we need to do more of anyway, is subverting these idiot leftists for our own purposes, because they're pretty easy to manipulate, obviously. It wouldn't be that hard to put something like that in front of them. But yeah, I've heard the same thing, that this is kind of like also going after like the iPad parents. They to let the devices raise their kids. And a lot of people are upset by that because they can't handle any criticism or critique anymore of their parenting. But I do think Disney's also desperate to gain back some of their fan base and credibility, because it's been utterly destroyed. Because even one of the previous what do you call it, Toy Story movies, or maybe it was an offshoot from Toy Story, had some other like lesbian parents or some other.
That was Finding Nemo 2. Finding Nemo 2 had lesbian parents in it. It was the first time they showed that.
Well, I know that there was something along those lines in one of these other Toy Story or offshoot movies. I think it was an offshoot, not the 1 through 5 main story, just a couple years ago. Because, yeah, we covered it where they inserted this, again, LGBTQ propaganda into it. And a lot of parents were just disgusted by it.
Right. And Toy Story 4, which was a bomb, by the way, one of the key notions of that film was Bo Peep, who is the, kind of shepherd girl, little Bo Peep. She
Mhm.
decides that she is no longer useful in the home. So she ditches the dress for pants, literally, and goes out into the world and becomes like a superhero, right? So you kind of see that feminism agenda in Toy Story.
Yeah.
But this was a complete reversal of all of that. And I really felt like it was because I grew up watching Disney movies, right? I've seen them all,
Yeah.
had them on VHS tape, etc. This felt like a Disney movie from 2004. This felt like a Disney movie from 1999. And
Yeah.
I do think they're trying to, like you said, go back and regain some of the audience. And they were successful, I think.
Yeah, they're trying to rehab their image. They're desperate. And I had heard even a while back that Pixar executives did not want to go along with a lot of this propaganda inserts into their films. They wanted to just continue their formula because it worked, but it was pressure from Disney executives and girl bosses that cramming it down their throats is why they caved eventually. But Andrew, I want to thank you for joining us today. To our audience, I want to thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more. Thanks again, guys.